Thank you very much, Mergina. It's good to see you in Istanbul. But unfortunately, I am not going to talk about good things, nice things that are happening in Turkey. Basically, living in an oppressive regime is really hard. Today is weather is clear, basically. Sun is shining, but many people are living in dark situations, in dark conditions in Turkey. You might wonder why, or you might not wonder why. Basically, the political Islamist regime, when it was coming to power, it offered people the world and the moon. It promised the clouds, moon, world, Venus, Mars, and then people were actually deceived by its propaganda, because they were saying that Turkey will join the European Union, Turkey will have thousands of dollars of national income, there will not be any poverty, there will not be any corruption, there will not be any oppression. But in fact, they actually oppressed people unprecedentedly in Turkish society. They created poverty unseen in the history. Why they did this? Because actually power does two things to people who obtain it. First, it corrupts, but it just doesn't corrupt. It also kills people who does not support it. That is what is happening in Turkey, basically. When Erdogan wanted to get more power 5-6 years back from today, its regime ran a special operation against Turkish people. They named it as coup d'etat, but to be honest, as an academic, I can confidently say that it wasn't a coup d'etat, or it wasn't an attempted coup d'etat. It was a special operation run by Erdogan's cronies, Erdogan men. To be honest, I can see it with confidence today, so that Erdogan could get unlimited power, uncontrolled power, limitless power. And then to get it, his regime used lots of black propaganda, lots of manipulative propaganda, this and that. And Erdogan was able to rally some people behind himself by not using the power in his hands, but also using religion and nationalism. Believe you me, religion and nationalism are quite dangerous tools to be used in the hands of autocrats. Erdogan used this, and then he created some false enemies in the eyes of his followers. Basically, but the people he targeted was not actually, how should I say, straw men. They were real people. Erdogan created a straw man in his propaganda, but the straw men he attacked with all his power were not a straw man. They were real people, real men, real women, real children. What happened, according to Erdogan regime's enemies, according to his propaganda, who betrayed his country, he betrayed the country. No, in fact, nobody betrayed the country. Erdogan needed false enemies to keep his grip on power. That's why he started using emergency decrees. Actually, they were not emergency decrees. In fact, they were arbitrary decrees by Erdogan. Erdogan could name anybody as enemies of the state, enemies of the public, enemies of Islam, enemies of his own ideology, enemies of his authority. So in fact, he used supposed to be emergency decrees, but in reality, they were Erdogan's arbitrary decrees. Then what happened? He targeted those people he chose to target, but they were not, believe you me, they were not people in arms. They were not people who chose violence to compete against Erdogan or his regime. He targeted, believe you me, teachers, academics, doctors, engineers, lawyers, all those people. And then any person with a right mind might know and might tell that academics do not bear arms, lawyers do not bear arms, teachers do not bear arms. They didn't bear arms, but Erdogan portrayed those people as armed groups who attacked Turkish nation, Turkish state, Turkish, official religion, this and that. But it wasn't true, obviously. But he made people believe through his black propaganda. What I'm going to tell you lastly, just recently after the earthquake of 6th February 2023, earthquake, after that, did you know that Erdogan did not give a glass of water, did not give a spoon of food to the people who were escaped from the ruins of the homes that were destroyed by the earthquake? Would you believe that? You may find unbelievable, but it is, please believe you me, it is real. Erdogan did not give a glass of water, a sip of water to the decree victims, emergency, or as I told you, arbitrary decree victims. When they were escaped, somehow they were escaped from the ruins of their homes, they did not get a tent from Erdogan's regime. They couldn't get a room to stay in. Believe you me, if somehow they got a tent or a public room somehow, they were evacuated immediately. I can give you names, or I will not be obviously giving names here, but just follow the social media. You will see families being thrown out from public housings, emergency housings that were provided for earthquake victims, basically. Well, anybody with a right mind wouldn't accept that, would think that I am actually myself somehow trying to give false information, misinformation to you. But believe you me, it happened. It is outrageous. It is unbelievable. It is unacceptable. But that is the truth. So what my warning is? Please be aware of oppressive regimes. Please be aware of one-man regimes. Otherwise, you might lose your connection with the truth. That is what I am going to say. Please be aware of these kind of regimes, and please do not support them either actively or passively by staying silent. Thank you very much. listen.